You're trapped in a spectator sport. Every move you make gets broadcast. Every failure dissected in real time. Your friends know what you're doing before you finish doing it. Your family tracks your progress like a stock ticker. And the worst part? You've convinced yourself this visibility is connection. It's not. It's a leash. The modern man lives in a fishbowl, and he's drowning in the stagnant water of constant feedback. Social media turned self-improvement into performance art. You post the gym selfie before the discipline sets in. You announce the business plan before the first sale. You broadcast the intention before the execution, and the dopamine hit from the announcement kills the motivation to actually do the work. Miyamoto Musashi understood something 17 generations ago that you're just now learning the hard way. Transformation requires disappearance. In 1643, Musashi walked into Reigando Cave with nothing but ink, paper, and the weight of 60 duels on his shoulders. He didn't tell anyone he was going. He didn't post about his journey. He vanished. And when he emerged 2 years later, he had written the Book of 5 Rings, the most lethal strategic manual ever composed. The world didn't watch him become a master. They just woke up one day, and he already was one. This is the Reigando Protocol. 6 months of strategic invisibility. 6 months where your haters lose interest, your critics move on, and your discipline compounds in silence. No updates, no explanations, no breadcrumbs, just the cold mathematics of improvement happening in the dark until you walk back into the light unrecognizable. The question isn't whether you need this. You already know you do. The question is whether you have the spine to actually vanish. The reason you're stuck is simple. You're too visible. Every time you share your goal, your brain releases dopamine as if you've already achieved it. NYU psychologist Peter Gollwitzer ran the studies. When you tell people about your intentions, your brain experiences what he calls social reality. The acknowledgement feels like accomplishment. The praise short-circuits the grind. You get the reward without the result, and your nervous system stops caring about the actual work. This isn't just psychology. Your identity system operates on symbolic completion. When you announce a goal and receive positive feedback, your brain registers partial fulfillment of that identity. You've already experienced the validation, so the delayed gratification of actual achievement loses its pull. You become addicted to the announcement, not the execution. This is why most men's goals die in the comment section. But here's what breaks you even harder. The surveillance state you call friendship. Your social circle isn't neutral. They're anchored to the version of you they know. When you start to change, their identity destabilizes, so they pull you back. Not with malice, but with concern. Don't isolate yourself, man. You're overthinking this. Just be yourself. They wrap sabotage in care, and you mistake their fear for wisdom. The digital umbilical cord feeding you notifications, messages, and updates keeps you tethered to a version of yourself that no longer serves you. You think you're connected? You're not. You're leashed. Every ping is a permission slip to stay the same. Every scroll is a vote for distraction. Every story you watch is 5 minutes you didn't invest in the man you claim you want to become. And then there's the most insidious trap. The validation addiction. You've trained your dopamine receptors to expect immediate rewards. Post a thought, get a like. Share a struggle, receive sympathy. Document the journey, harvest engagement. Your brain doesn't differentiate between real progress and digital applause. It just knows something lit up the reward center, and now it wants more. So you keep feeding the beast, posting instead of producing, performing instead of practicing. Musashi didn't have Instagram. He had silence. He had the suffocating darkness of Reigando Cave, where nobody could see him stumble, nobody could watch him doubt, and nobody could interrupt the brutal honesty of a man facing himself without distraction. That isolation wasn't punishment, it was strategy. The cave was a forge, and visibility was the impurity he burned away. If you're serious about transformation, you need to understand this. Your environment is a voting system, and right now, every input in your life is voting for you to stay exactly where you are. The only way to rig the election is to disappear from the ballot entirely. Spring, 1643. Musashi was 60 years old, and his body was failing. The hands that once moved faster than sight now cramped when holding a brush. The legs that carried him through 60 duels without a single loss now struggled with the climb to Reigando Cave. He knew what was coming. Every warrior knows when the final campaign begins. The cave sat high in the mountains of Kumamoto, carved into black volcanic rock. No windows, no comfort. Just stone walls that wept moisture and the smell of earth pressing in from all sides. Musashi didn't choose this place for inspiration. He chose it because it was hostile, because comfort breeds complacency, and he had one last war to fight. The war against everything he thought he knew. For 2 years, he lived in near total darkness. His disciples brought rice and water, but they didn't speak. No news from the outside. No updates on clan politics or rival schools. Just Musashi, a brush, and the blank page. He started writing what would become Go-Rin no Sho, the Book of 5 Rings. But he didn't write it as a memoir. He wrote it as a dissection. Every principle he'd relied on, every technique he'd mastered, every philosophy he'd lived by, got stripped down to its skeleton and examined under the cold light of truth. This wasn't retirement. It was refinement. The dopamine system that kept him sharp in combat had calcified. He'd spent decades chasing the high of victory, the rush of walking away alive when others didn't. But now, in the cave, there was no opponent, no crowd, no validation, just the discipline of putting ink on paper when his body screamed to rest. Just the discipline of thinking clearly when his mind wanted to drift into nostalgia or regret. Month 1 in that cave, Musashi experienced what modern neuroscience calls dopamine baseline recalibration. When you remove all external stimulation, the brain's reward system resets. The constant drip of micro-rewards from social interaction, novelty, and validation stops. Your receptors, starved and hypersensitive, start responding to smaller stimuli. A cup of water tastes better. A thought holds more weight. The act of creation becomes its own reward again. Month 2, something stranger happened. The silence stopped feeling oppressive. His thoughts, no longer interrupted by external input, began to organize themselves with surgical precision. Ideas he'd carried for decades suddenly crystallized. Strategies that seemed contradictory revealed their underlying unity. The void wasn't empty. It was full of signal, and he'd finally stopped drowning it out with noise. By month 6, Musashi had written the Earth chapter. By month 12, Water. By the time he emerged, the Book of 5 Rings was nearly complete, and the man who entered the cave was unrecognizable from the one who walked out. Not because he'd gained new knowledge, but because he'd burned away everything false. The isolation hadn't weakened him. It had distilled him into his most lethal form, a mind that could see clearly because nothing stood between perception and truth. Musashi called it Ku, the void, the 5th ring. Most men read that chapter and think it's mystical nonsense. It's not. It's the coldest strategic principle ever written. Power exists in the space where nothing competes for your attention. The void isn't about emptiness. It's about absence of distraction. In combat, Musashi didn't win because he was faster or stronger. He won because he could see the fight without his ego distorting the data. While his opponent was thinking about victory, reputation, or survival, Musashi was simply observing. No internal commentary. No fear-clouding judgment. Just pure perception leading to flawless execution. This is what you're building in your 6-month disappearance. The ability to see yourself without the distortion of external validation. Right now, your self-concept is a democracy. Your friends vote on who you are. Your family votes. Social media votes. Your boss votes. And you, the person actually living your life, get drowned out by the committee. The shadow self, the part of you that operates below conscious awareness, is shaped entirely by these external inputs. It absorbs their fears, their limitations, their expectations, and it turns them into your internal compass. The Reigando Protocol destroys that committee. Month 1, you sever the digital umbilical cord. Delete the apps. Don't announce it, just vanish. The first week, your brain will riot. The dopamine receptors that expect constant stimulation will scream. You'll feel phantom vibrations. You'll reach for your phone 30 times a day to check nothing. This is withdrawal, and it's supposed to hurt. Let it. Month 2, the biology shifts. Stanford neuroscientist Andrew Huberman's research shows that after 14 to 30 days of dopamine fasting, your baseline receptors begin to resensitize. Things that used to bore you, reading a full chapter, sitting with a single thought, working without music, start to hold your attention again. Your reward system recalibrates. The high from quick hits fades, and you start craving depth. But the real work happens in the shadow self-audit. Musashi did this in Reigando, and you'll do it in your isolation. Take inventory of every weakness the world has allowed you to ignore. The laziness you justify as self-care. The procrastination you rebrand as perfectionism. The cowardice you call being reasonable. Write it down. Not in a journal app. On paper. Physical. Permanent. This isn't therapy. This is reconnaissance. You're mapping the enemy territory inside your own skull. The void strategy works because it removes the audience. Without external validation, you can't lie to yourself. Without friends reinforcing your excuses, you can't hide behind shared mediocrity. Without social media rewarding your performance of effort, you have to confront actual results. The silence becomes a mirror, and most men can't handle what they see. That's why they never disappear. They'd rather stay visible and delusional than vanish and face the truth. Musashi wrote in the Book of Water, "Perception is strong, sight is weak." What he meant is this: what you think you see is filtered through bias, ego, and social conditioning. True perception, what he called Khan, strips that away. The void gives you that surgical clarity. 6 months of it, and you'll perceive yourself and your environment with the accuracy of a blade finding the gap in armor. Stop reading. Here's what you do today. First, identify your 3 pillars. Musashi had strategy, swordsmanship, and spirit. You have body, mind, and resources. That's it. Everything else is noise. Body means the physical armor you walk around in. Mind means the skill set that makes you dangerous. Resources means the money and assets that give you freedom. For the next 6 months, 100% of your energy flows into these 3. Nothing else gets a vote. Month 1 is severance. Cut every input that isn't directly feeding those three pillars. Friends who drain energy? Gone. News that manufactures anxiety? Blocked. Social media that rewards performance over production? Deleted. This isn't temporary. You're not taking a break. You're amputating dead weight. Tell no one. Don't explain. Don't justify. Just vanish. The people who deserve to stay in your life will still be there in 6 months. The rest were never allies to begin with. Month 2 is the physical forge. Train like your life depends on it because your self-respect does. Lift heavy 4 times a week minimum. Not for aesthetics. For proof that you can impose your will on matter. The barbell doesn't care about your feelings. It moves or it doesn't. That binary feedback loop rewires your brain. No comfort workouts. No listening to your body when your body is a coward. Push until you're different. Month 3 is skill acquisition. Musashi didn't master 60 weapons. He mastered one blade so completely that every other tool became an extension of the same principle. You do the same. Pick one skill that directly increases your earning power or operational capability. Coding, copywriting, sales, design, welding. Doesn't matter. What matters is depth. Spend 3 hours a day, every day, for 90 days on that one skill. No dabbling, no side quests. One blade sharpened to lethal. Month 4 is intellectual expansion, but not the way you think. Stop reading news. It's sugar for anxiety addicts. Raid strategy instead. Boyd's OODA loop. Clausewitz's On War. Robert Greene's 33 strategies. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Machiavelli. Men who understood power, not men who talked about feelings. Take notes by hand. Slow. Methodical. Let the concepts embed in your nervous system, not just your memory. Month 5 is resource optimization. Audit every dollar. Most men hemorrhage money on comfort purchases that keep them weak. Subscription services they don't use. Food delivery because cooking feels hard. Entertainment that numbs instead of sharpens. Cut it. Redirect that capital into the 3 pillars. Buy the equipment. Pay for the course. Invest in the skill. Money is potential energy. Stop burning it on entropy. Month 6 is the re-entry strategy, and this is where most men fumble. They disappear, do the work, then come back and immediately tell everyone what they did. Wrong. Your transformation isn't a story. It's a fact. Don't explain. Don't defend. Don't seek validation for the new you. Just show up different and let your results do the talking. The people who knew you before will feel disoriented. Good. That disorientation is the gap between who you were and who you've become. When the crabs in the bucket try to pull you back, and they will, you say nothing. You just keep moving. Their criticism is proof you've outgrown the container. Musashi didn't debate his duels. He showed up, won, and left. You do the same. Jocko Willink, former Navy SEAL commander, talks about detachment as the key to tactical superiority. When you're emotionally invested in the chaos, you can't see it clearly. When you detach, you command it. The Reigando Protocol is detachment at industrial scale. You're not running from the world. You're rising above it so you can see the battlefield without the fog of social noise. The modern witnesses exist. Men who've done this. David Goggins ran 100 miles in under 24 hours after vanishing from social media for months to train. Jocko wakes at 4:30 a.m. every day, not because it's trendy, but because discipline in silence compounds into dominance in public. They didn't document the grind. They just showed up transformed, and the world had no choice but to recognize the shift. You think 6 months is a long time? It's not. It's 180 days. Musashi spent 2 years in Reigando Cave. You're being asked for 1/4 of that, and you're hesitating. That hesitation is the committee in your head voting for you to stay the same. The friends who'll miss you, the family who'll worry, the audience who'll forget about you. None of them are paying your bills. None of them are living your consequences. Their opinions are irrelevant. Here's what happens if you don't do this. You stay visible. You keep performing transformation instead of executing it. You post the progress pics, collect the likes, and wake up a year from now exactly where you are right now. Only older and more bitter. The window for radical change closes. Not because you can't do it later, but because the part of you willing to suffer for it dies from lack of use. The alternative is simple. You vanish. You do the work. You sharpen the blade in the dark where nobody can see you stumble. And when you return, you're not the man who left. You're harder, sharper, undeniable. The people who doubted you go silent. The people who dismissed you start paying attention, and the version of you that needed their validation is dead, replaced by a man who only answers to the standard he set for himself. 1 week before Musashi died in 1645, he wrote his final work, the Dokkodo, the Way of Walking Alone. 21 precepts for the warrior who had mastered everything and needed nothing. The first precept, accept everything just the way it is. The second, do not seek pleasure for its own sake. And one of the most brutal, think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. He meant this. Your ego is not the mission. Your comfort is not the mission. Your reputation is not the mission. The mission is becoming the most lethal version of yourself possible, so that when the world demands something from you, you have the capacity to deliver. You are no longer who you were. That man is gone. The question is whether you have the discipline to make sure he stays gone. This is Katana mindset. If you're ready to enlist in the hardest mental training you'll ever face, subscribe now. This channel doesn't coddle, it forges. And if you're still here, you're already different from the men who clicked away 30 seconds in. Master yourself, or the world will master you.